Each year at the end of spring, before extreme heat makes the place unbearable, tourists flock to the heavenly mountains in China's Xinjiang region. There's nothing more chic than a selfie by Tian Shan Lake with its snowy peaks, or a ride in a military vehicle in the red sandstone canyons, in these sumptuous settings where Silk Road caravans once traveled. But once back on the bus, smartphones and cameras must be turned off. Local authorities praise mass tourism, but exert complete control over these Chinese visitors, their memories, and their potential publications. That's because in recent years, other images of Xinjiang have emerged. They have revealed a very different reality. Internment camps and prisoner convoys. Survivors from these camps have reported torture, rape, and forced sterilization. The government's target? Uyghurs, the inhabitants of Xinjiang, a Muslim-majority population.
Zincirlerde bağlayıp işte binazı tuz kılanmaslıkınız. Aşkarabad'daki bağlak halatda 7 ay 10 gün aşında bir insan kalıbından çıkan hayvanlardan mı beter aldı horluk.
Free Uyghurs! Free Uyghurs! Stop Uyghur genocide!
Disappearances, arrests, summary judgments. Millions of people fear for their lives and the lives of their families. Political leaders no longer shy away from calling these abuses genocide.
1 million Uyghurs, as you pointed out, Muslims, are in concentration camps. That's what they are right now. They're being abused, they're in concentration camps.
Why have Chinese leaders decided to persecute this region's population?
They're trying to wipe out Uyghurs' identity, language, culture, history, religion. The Chinese government have made themselves pretty clear through their own actions. Their ultimate goal is to wipe out an entire ethnicity.
To better understand the tragedy taking place in Xinjiang, we probed into the action plan rolled out by the Chinese Communist Party designed to wipe out this ethnic minority.
Ce qui se passe, qu'on le qualifie de crime contre l'humanité ou de génocide, a peu d'importance. Ce qui se passe est tellement grave que la communauté internationale n'a pas le droit de se taire. Parce que le complice des bourreaux, c'est toujours le silence.
The Uyghurs' territory is Xinjiang, China's westernmost region. A little over 2,500 kilometers separate Beijing, the political heart of the People's Republic of China, from Urumqi, the capital of Xinjiang, the biggest region in China. 3 times the size of France, Xinjiang forms a border between China and 8 countries, including 2 large Muslim countries, Pakistan and Afghanistan. Rich in natural resources, this region is vital to China's economic and industrial growth. Sparsely populated, Xinjiang is home to several ethnic minorities: Kazakhs, Hui, Kyrgyz, Mongols, Tajiks, Uzbeks, and notably 11 million Uyghurs, considered to be the region's indigenous people. These Turkic-speaking people have been settled here for centuries and have never felt themselves to be Chinese.
The Uyghurs have much more in common with the peoples of Central Asia than they do with the Han Chinese people. Culturally, historically, linguistically, they share a lot of commonalities with the people of former Soviet Central Asia, the Uzbeks, the Kazakhs, and so on. In fact, many of those people also inhabit the Uyghur region of China.
Demographically, the Chinese nation is divided into 56 ethnic groups, quite an unbalanced mosaic. In fact, China is a country that is cut in 2. The eastern part is where most Han Chinese live, concentrated in major urban centers. They make up 92% of China's population. To the west and north, there are vast regions that are home to many ethnic groups, among them Tibetans, Mongols, Uyghurs, and other Turkic speakers. 60% of China's natural resources are located in these territories inhabited by ethnic minorities. There are now almost as many Han Chinese in Xinjiang as there are Uyghurs. This is the result of migration organized by the Chinese Communist Party since 1949. It has sped up significantly since President Xi Jinping came to power. The Uyghurs condemn the Han colonization of their territory and have been fighting for decades to preserve their identity, religion, and culture.
因为中华人民共和国宪法确定中国是一个多民族的国家。那么，但是习近平今天显然他想打造一个单一民族，就中华民族。而这个中华民族当然就是以汉族为主体的，那么以汉族为霸权来消化其他的民族。
To better assimilate the Uyghurs, the Chinese Communist Party decided to betray its own constitution and attack the bedrock of Uyghur culture and identity, Islam. In Xinjiang, going to the mosque, having a beard, wearing a hijab, or keeping a Quran at home can lead to arrest and sometimes prison. In China, people may only worship the Chinese Communist Party, particularly in Xinjiang, where social stability is absolutely vital to the government. The region is essential to the country's growth. Its land contains 1/3 of China's coal, oil, and gas reserves. Xinjiang also produces 20% of the world's cotton. And that's not all. In 2013, the Chinese president launched his colossal project, the Belt and Road Initiative. This includes a new 10,000-kilometer rail and road network connecting China to Europe through Central Asia. In China, Xinjiang is the main crossing point for these new trade routes.
这是一项造福沿途各国人民的大事业。
So pragmatic Chinese leaders decided to work to secure the region in order to better exploit its resources, even if it meant sacrificing the people.
他现在依靠他的“一带一路”，那么现在“一带一路”第一个门槛就是新疆。他如果在门槛上就已经被绊脚，就已经走不出去的话了，他的一带一路也就全部毁掉。那么，所以对习近平来说，这是要他命的事情。那么，所以习近平当然会要保证新疆这块地方了，那么就会安定、安全。 那么让他的一带一路可以从新疆可以走出去，那么所以这就是为什么你可以看到习近平他会花这么多的方法，那么会让新疆人就要把他们给控制住，那所以你就可以明白，对就是习近平来说，他的感觉到的威胁不仅仅是对他的治疆的政策的威胁，那么是对他整个全盘的他掌控的中国经济生存的威胁。
Of course, the Chinese leaders' dream isn't shared by the Uyghurs. They have always resisted what they see as an occupation by the Han. Over the years, there have been violent clashes between the two ethnic groups. Some Uyghurs have decided to radicalize their struggle, attacking Han Chinese in other regions. On October the 28th, 2013, there was a suicide attack in the Chinese capital's Tiananmen Square. A car with Xinjiang plates deliberately drove into the crowd, killing 2 people and wounding 40 before exploding. A few months later, on March the 1st, 2014, Kunming Station in Yunnan province was attacked. 6 men and 2 women, described by official media as Uyghur terrorists, stabbed 31 people to death. Members of the National People's Congress observed a minute's silence in homage to the Kunming victims. Xi Jinping declared war on the 3 scourges poisoning China: separatism, extremism, and terrorism. The Uyghurs must become loyal to the Chinese Communist Party or else disappear. Xi Jinping's retaliation was swift. 1 month after the Kunming attack, he went to Xinjiang, the region he says is the front line of terrorism. At the outset, in front of state cameras, the Chinese president looked to reassure the people.
最重要的呀，就是要增进民族团结。汉族啊，离不开少数民族啊，少数的民族也离不开汉族啊，少数民族之间也相互离不开。我们像这样的一种团结啊，是我们发展进步的一个基础一定要把它搞好。
But behind the scenes, Xi Jinping took a different tone. He gave very clear orders to the local authorities. Visiting a Kashgar police station in southern Xinjiang, he encouraged his troops to strike the regime's enemies hard in the fight against terrorism.
希望你们在这个今后的为民服务社会治安维稳各项任务中，再做出优异的成绩。基层的派出所，这是我们的拳头和尖刀我们一定要把基层派出所抓好。
On the last day of the Chinese president's visit, a knife and bomb attack killed 3 and wounded 79 in Xinjiang's capital, Urumqi. Chinese leaders retaliated using the weapon they wield best: fear. It was no longer good to be a Uighur in Xinjiang. Beijing turned the region into a police state, launching a campaign of repression against the Uyghurs. But no one knew what was happening there. The region became almost inaccessible to foreigners. Neither diplomats nor human rights activists could go there freely. Since 2014, the communist regime has imposed absolute secrecy regarding their actions against the Uyghurs. Xinjiang became an information black hole. Except within the Uyghur diaspora, particularly in the US, where rumors began to circulate, China had allegedly opened huge re-education camps in Xinjiang, in which thousands of Uyghurs would be interned.
This is Radio Free Asia from Washington, D.C.
One day in March 2017, a Uyghur journalist exiled in Washington managed to shed some light on the matter. Shoret Oshur left Xinjiang for the US almost 30 years ago. Despite the distance, he remains one of the best informed people about the fate of his compatriots. In Washington, he hosts Uyghur content on Radio Free Asia, a pro-democratic station funded by the US Congress, destined for Asian peoples oppressed by an authoritarian regime.
Ben bu 2017-yilda 3-oyga kelgan chaqda 2017-yil 3-oyda bütün shu chet ellik Uyg'urlarning orasida bir qism oilalarniki a'zolarining asosan degidek tutilib ketganligi, ba'zilarining bir qismini tutilganligi, ba'zi mahallalarningki butunlay tutilib ketganligi, ba'zilarining shaharlar bo'yicha tutilib ketganligi haqida uchraldim. Bunların hammasida asosan odam qolmadi degan gap bor, ammo meni ishongim kam edi. Kamay bundan bo'lamdi dedim, ammo shuni oldimda telefon qilib, Qashqar, Xotan, Aqsuliga telefon qilsam.
In Xinjiang, Uyghurs who receive international phone calls are immediately arrested. So to contact them, Shoret disguised his voice and the origin of his calls.
Mening bu savolni palaliqqa o'tirib qo'ydim. U yoqda kim tutildi, o'ng qo'shnining kimi, so'l qo'shnining kimi dedim. Hammasi o'ng so'l qo'shnisidan tutilganim yo'q demadi. Bir savo ya ikki savo dedi. Mushdan qarag'an chaqda umumyuzlik tutilganligini bildim. Onun keyindan anda men yeziga telefon qildim, yezlik hukumat telefon qildim. Hukumat 41 soat odam tutish haqida vazifamiz bor dedi. Shundan qarab umumyuzlik tutish buyruq ekan dedim.
One day, he managed to talk to an official in southern Xinjiang.
Shunda bo'lganda bu viloyat bo'yicha tarbiyalanayotganlarning soni qancha sizcha?
For the very first time, a Chinese official had confirmed mass incarceration in Xinjiang. Shorit Oshur's revelations triggered the wrath of the Chinese authorities. In retaliation, they targeted his family members still in Xinjiang. One of his brothers disappeared. Another got 5 years of forced labor.
Ularning tahdidi tugimadi. Hozirga qadar bo'layotgan ziyolining hammasi ular deydi, sen mush xizmatni to'xtatsang, sening oilangga avorchilik tugi to'xtaydi deydi. Ammo men ishonamanki, bu bizning millatning taqdiri bilan mening oilamning taqdiri o'xshash. Mening oilam faqat bizning millatning taqdiri o'ngshalgan chaqda o'ngshildi.
Shorit Oshur's scoop was just the start of a series of damning revelations for the Chinese government. For his safety, our meeting with German researcher Adrian Zenz was held in a discreet location in the US Midwest. The discoveries made by this anthropologist, an expert on social policies, have made him the bane of the Chinese superpower. For months, Zenz unearthed signs of these mass internments in thousands of pages of official documents available on the internet.
Das Problem ist, dass man in Xinjiang selber keine Feldforschung machen kann. Meine Methodik besteht hier drin, chinesische Regierungsdaten und Statistiken zu suchen und zu finden. Nicht nur unterschiedliche Arten von Regierungsdokumenten, wie zum Beispiel Budgets oder Stellenausschreibungen oder Reportagen oder Reporte und so weiter, Berichte. Was ich dann tue, ist eine Art Detektivarbeit oder eine Art Puzzlearbeit.
In scouring official documents, Zenz found calls for tenders for the construction of what Chinese authorities call professional training centers. But the required equipment caught the researchers' attention.
Das wichtigste und, ich sag mal so, krasseste Beweismaterial für die Umerziehungslager waren diese Projektausschreibungen, wo doch schwarz auf weiß stand, wir brauchen eine gesicherte Anlage für die Umerziehung. Und die muss ein lückenloses Kamerasystem haben. Es muss eine hohe Mauer ganz drumherum geben, mit Stacheldraht. Wir brauchen Wachtürme, wir brauchen eine spezielle Polizeistation mit bewaffneter Polizei auf diesem Gelände. Also diese Details zur Sicherheit und zur Überwachung, das war wirklich einmalig. Und das war natürlich auch unglaublich, das zu sehen, dass die Regierung das so offen darstellt.
When he analyzed the data he found in 2017, Adrian Zenz estimated that dozens of camps were being built, mainly in rural areas in southern Xinjiang. By his calculations, up to 1 million people could be interned there. This was immediately confirmed by another source. In Canada, a student of Chinese descent managed to find the geographic coordinates of these detention centers and locate them on satellite images. Like here in Kashgar, a giant, ultra-secure complex built in just a few months. You can clearly see a surrounding wall, an estimated 10 meters high, and 7 watchtowers. The Xinjiang authorities have built around 20 buildings there, including 13 more than 5 stories high. This camp could potentially hold up to 10,000 detainees. By the summer of 2018, thanks to this series of revelations, no one could be left unaware of the terrible human rights violations in Xinjiang. There was no doubt that the camps existed. At the United Nations, some were determined to ask China to account for them. A Chinese delegation was expected at the UN's European headquarters to present the measures China planned to put in place to fight racial discrimination. The UN Special Reporter asked the Chinese representatives outright for explanations on the repression of Uyghurs in Xinjiang.
In the name of combating religious extremism and maintaining social stability, the state party has turned the Uyghur Autonomous Region into something that resembles a massive internment camp that is shrouded in secrecy, a sort of a no-rights zone, and that members of the Uyghur minority, along with others who are identified as Muslims, are being treated as enemies of the state based solely on their ethno-religious identity.
所谓上百万维族人被拘押在这教育中心的观点说法，完全不符合事实。新疆坚持依法打击恐怖主义、极端主义、分裂主义，反对把反恐怖、反极端、反分裂与特定的民族宗教挂钩。
The Chinese delegation denied the existence of re-education camps, but admitted to opening professional training centres with the intention of fighting extremism through education and work. The Chinese authorities opposed what they called unbearable meddling in its internal affairs and manipulation by the enemies of the People's Republic. It was just the beginning, because witnesses soon made themselves heard. The Chinese Communist Party had only good things to say about Kelbinur Siddiq, a Chinese woman of Uzbek ethnicity married to a Uyghur. Kelbinur taught Chinese in Urumqi. She was a model, loyal, obedient member of the party. That's why the Xinjiang authorities commandeered her to teach classes in one of these centers, with, of course, the obligation to remain completely silent about what was going on there.
Kalbinur, seninki kızın Gollandiyada okuyatıdı dep. Çünkü balarımız uçurunu her ay aptırdı ular. Nerede okuyatıdı dep başı yollaptırmız. Dedim desem sen çokum bek ihtiyat kılmasa olmaydı cümle. Sen hatta aşağıya bagen ders begen jaryanlarına hizmetdaşlarına mı, tukanlarına mı demeyse, fakat demeyse muş insan çın tutsun degen de buldu.
On March the 1st, 2017, a police officer picked her up and drove her to the top of a hill overlooking the city.
Kaplı ben düşüp qarasam bu 4 qavatlı külrang sağan bina, konu bina ki bu yeni emas. Andan keyin 4 qavat bina ki qoro var ki qoronun üstüde sim rishatkamda simli o'rib etgan. Qoro qilgan ishimi 3 qavat ishga. Ashta qilib kirdik. Qoro kirib men hayron qoldim. Qoro kirsam saqchi harbiylar qurolliq turibdi degan. Shunchalik qamal qilingan saqchi harbiylar degan bir xil kirsangiz bir xil survasidi odamni bu qanday yerda deb. Aniki maşadaki xizmatchilarninki ishxonasi deb shu yerga boshlab kirdim. Kirsam u yerda 5 Uyg'ur qiz olib ekan. Desam biz shu yerda ekan, shu yerman deb ularni. Ashlarni chaqirib beraylar, siz biz bilan men dedi. Ders başlandı deb Xitoycha. Eshiklarni ochdi. Bular chiqishga boshladi. Men bu vaqt kelib yotdim. Shunda qo'rqinish bir xil vahima o'zim titrab ketparman, qo'limda kitob bor. Qarasangiz bular hammasi put-qo'llarda kishan zanjir chiqib o'tdim. Men bu qarab hayron qoldim. Bu shuni o'zimni o'ngshashqiman, hech bir nimam yo'qda. 97 ga men bilan sanasam 7 ayol edi. Üstüge apsilin rengide ciddi kiygen tüpü numar besiq çünkü ben ismini so'rashga bo'lmaydi, numarını chaqirsiz. Ben kiripla bulaga anakin assalomu alaykum debdim men. Desam eliqlar ishni kutamidi, hammasi mushtaq sanglab böyle kusurishib ketdi. Oqida 7 ayolg'o esa deb yig'labdi ketdi. U yerda o kampadagilar bishida shu mesela Xitoy tili ders o'tdik. Keyingi kelgan vaqtida ularga qizil naqsh o'gitinglar deb uqtirish keldigan, xunga deb qo'ydik hamda. Partiya bo'lmasa yangi jungo bo'lmaydi, oqshaq deb ularni ming'isi qo'yishimiz kerak ekan. Tərbiyələyimiz degan niyet olğan bolsa, ətigəndə əkəb yığıb elib həmsini keçdi qoyvası buldu ularni. U yerə solub əkirib putqolları kişən zəncirlərini silishning unda qiynashning o'rni yo'q. U yerdagilarimiz birmi gunohsi yo'q, gunoh. Ularning birdan bir gunohi nima? Uyg'ur bo'lganligi uchun.
For over a year, Kelbanor unwillingly continued the mission the authorities had given her. In October 2019, the party gave her permission to go to the Netherlands to visit her daughter. She requested political asylum. Distraught by what she had seen, Kelbanor was one of the first to bear witness to the Uyghurs' fate. In Xinjiang, a few foreign reporters outsmarted police surveillance and managed to sneak some footage. Fortified enclosures with barbed wire and watchtowers, surveillance cameras. These images corroborated what Adrian Zenz had uncovered in official documents. New satellite images showed the proliferation of camps throughout the region. In 2020, Australian researchers identified 380 new ones. According to Adrian Zenz, there may be 1,300 to 1,400 of them in total. During construction, guards and site workers posted a few images from inside these buildings that the Chinese call professional training centers. Some of these videos escaped the notice of Chinese censors. They don't show classrooms, but rather cells and torture chambers.
Hazır mən də görüb, mən yürgüm tüp yürgüm soğup gitip barıdı hazır. Qattiq jazalığa vaqtida qilgan narsa bu. Aşa sen iqra qil, bo'yningga al, deb turib aşa eng vahshiy usulda qiynaydigan vaqtida mana mushtaq bog'lab, isib qo'yib, odamni ish qilib, chidiqsiz darajada azoblaydi mana shunday holatda. Aşa yog'och kaltak, tok kaltak, rezinka kaltak, aş urg'an vaqtida ash chidamay qolasiz. Dada, apa, buni qutuldiringlar deb qattiq to'lab ketasiz buni bunday qiynagan vaqtida.
For Omiya, the torture lasted 7 months and 10 days. Before his arrest, like many Uyghurs, he lived and worked in neighboring Kazakhstan. In spring 2017, he went to Xinjiang to attend a trade fair. There, he was arrested and interned in a camp. The authorities accused him of having separatist ideas. Now a refugee in the Netherlands, he's reunited with his family, but hasn't forgotten anything of what he went through.
Saat 6:20'da şu tamga qarab bayroq chiqarishga majburmiz. Uyga kirgan insonlarning hammasiga shu ayni vaqtda Amerikaliklarniki Guantanamo qamagan insonlar kiyimiga o'xshash mandarin kiyimi kiydiriladi. Hammamizga o'xshash zanjirlardan bog'lanib qizil naqshlarni erishishga majbur bo'lamiz. Tamaq yani eng azida bir yo'miz 2dan shu qizil naqshni yetmaysiz tamaq berilmaydi. Ular meni davlat shariatlash, naqshlar qizil naqshlarni o'qishga majburlanganda rad qilganligim uchun men uning ichida 4 xil jazo oshirdim. Birinchisi sizni shu rezinkaltakdan urib 2 soatcha urgandan keyin tam devorga qarab 24 soat turasiz. Suv, tamaq hechdan berilmaydi. Ikkinchi jazo sizni yo'lbos o'rindiqqa bog'lab tashlaydi. Ya'ni urib hargandan keyin badalaringizni boshlamay datgacha urgandan keyin olib yo'lbos o'rindiqqa bog'lab tashlanasiz. Va umuman 24 soat suv, yemek ichmashdan berilmaydi. Bularni o'shirdim. Uchinchi jazo bu shu bayam degandek 3 kvadratlik zindonga uyaga solinasiz tayoqni yeb bo'lgandan keyin. Tamaq hechnimi yo'q. Ya da su hechnimi yo'q. O'sha betondan yatasiz. To'rtinchi jazo so'qoqda shu qorda shu yalang'och ko'sar bilan shu turishga majbur bo'lasiz 24 soat. titramsiz, to'nglamsiz, nima bo'lsangiz bo'ling. Siz yozuv kuni bo'lib qolsa, shu yalang'och shu aptap, pijg'in aptapda turishga majbur bo'lasiz. Bizga onun için ekranlab shu kallangizda sizniki milliyligingizni yo'qotish uchun, diniy e'tiqodingizni voz kechirish uchun butun sizni ruhiy bisimli azoblaydi, ochliqdan azoblaydi, xo'rlaydi.
Omir owes his salvation to diplomats in Kazakhstan, where he had become a citizen. The torture and humiliations he describes are the definition of brainwashing, a term and method invented in China in the 1950s. After the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989, a former executive decided to leave the party and take refuge in the US, where he now teaches political science. Xia Ming says Chinese leaders methodically use an old communist technique in Xinjiang.
洗脑，从中文，应该说从上海话来的，经常说就是打打脑子，就是洗洗脑。那么所以他就是对你进行那个强制的这个就是用往往是配以饥饿手段。那么他因为就是说饥饿可以摧毁一个人的意志，那么所以呢这个洗脑过程呢，你可以发现呢。 就中国共产党呢，一直贯穿在他的统治这个始终，那么所以这个是让中国人呢，一方面恐惧，所以呢也能够服从。
Hunger isn't the only weapon camp guards use to subjugate the population.
Bir qarımna kep mollo ke dep başta dedem rasm olun bilmeymiz bu kimligini biz bilmeydi bir adam çıktı. Falan meçitning imamı dep akeldi. Bunundakin din qışanmanglar. Komünist partiyadan başqa xudo yo'q. Andaq Xi Jinping birdan bir komünist partiya sizlarni yordam
Tursunay Ziavuddin posed no threat. However, Chinese authorities disapproved of her too frequent trips to Kazakhstan and saw her faith in Islam as excessive. She was subjected to 11 months of re-education. When she got there, the guards shaved her head and made her wear a uniform. She knew from the beginning that she'd go through hell.
Şundan yerimde yana bir kız var, aşağıdan bir ip çıktı, onu ikimiz de aşağı odatdagidek aşağıdaylık oturdum, bana da sakçılar nime bir kostum bulup kiygen bir ko'k kostum var, qora kostum aşağı kiyip bana da dayım. Çıkıp kostum bulup kiygen eniq bilmey, ko'zdi qora ko'zoynak maska tatib olgan. Ko'zoynakni evetdi, maskani olmadi da, lekin eniq ko'ngli bo'lmaydi qadamni. Keyin alıp formu kiygen bir sikirdi. Ve o tağız bilqi. Endi kirib o chiqdi dedi kiyiming shashtapchi mana. Undaq qildi, undaq deydigan narsa nemish qilgandim men yana urdigandim deb o'ylabdim menda. Bir vaqt men nemishga debchi yanliqmi, yana shuni qilsam o'zimda bir nima bor deb men ashtalam qo'ydim ash. Kelgan pit ash kaçatqı keltib biriniz aldı da jitiblet kiyimni o'rda qarshi qilish nimam maqamidi. Evet, ergin chiqiribdi. Uru atida tamg'i suzdirib eskilikni qildi, keyin yiliq kirdi. Oshiq tutib berdi qo'limni. Biroq ashada hoshimni ketib shiqilg'ich nima qilganini bilmayman 3 yil. Ay.
Thanks to her Kazakh husband, Tursunay was released, but she remains severely affected. Before leaving the camp, she had to promise she'd never speak of what happened. But there are also brave citizens in China who disapprove of the torment the party is subjecting Uyghurs to. In autumn 2019, when Xinjiang was still cut off by Chinese censorship, an anonymous source sent the New York Times vital information. Over 400 pages of internal Chinese Communist Party documents. They contained a great many official investigations and directives, reports on surveillance and control of the Uyghur population, statements by high-ranking communists, and lastly, 96 pages of a speech made by President Xi Jinping himself. In it, one can read the official orders he gave during his visit to Xinjiang 4 years earlier. These leaked documents, the Xinjiang Papers, confirmed the implementation of a vast concentration camp system, decided at the highest level of the communist hierarchy. In these top-secret documents, we learn that the Chinese president, while addressing regional authorities, compared religious extremism to a virus and to an evil drug. Xi Jinping stated that the fight against the scourge would require a long and painful treatment, and that the Chinese Communist Party would have to use all the tools of dictatorship to overcome it. Coming from the mouth of the Chinese president, it meant extreme actions were authorized. He even urged the local authorities to show absolutely no mercy. In Chinese leaders' minds, it's about treating evil with evil, a radical stance approved of by many Han intellectuals, like Shen Dingli, a university professor and government advisor.
如果这个恐怖主义是病毒，我们要去查出谁携带了病毒，然后把你隔离，不是杀掉你，是让你在这里边得到免费的治疗，让你快速的恢复健康。那么我们也不知道谁患了思想的病毒，那怎么办呢？让有可能的，我们让你到一定的地方接受一段时间的思想这个学习，然后呢，工作这个技术的一个获得。
To track down all those with this ideological virus, the party put the population of Xinjiang under surveillance. In China, the party has eyes and ears everywhere. In every district, neighborhood, factory, and building. But in Xinjiang, even more so than elsewhere, the dictatorship has deployed its most powerful tools, so-called smart cameras, facial recognition, biometrics, digital spying. Since the launch of the repression campaign in 2014, the population of this Chinese Far West has become the most monitored in the world.
One of the things the Chinese state talks about in terms of particularly its surveillance programming, but really this is the same thing about their re-education program, is they call it preventative policing. The idea that this person's not yet an extremist, they're not yet a terrorist, but we can see that they might become one, so we need to act now.
State surveillance in Xinjiang is pervasive, but maybe it's easier to think about it in sort of a three-dimensional, everyday sense. Imagine, for example, a QR code has been placed outside your front door so that authorities can stop by and scan that code to see who's registered to live there and then knock on the door and see if the right people are there, or maybe the wrong people are there. You leave your house in the morning to take your children to school and to go to the shops. You have to pass through checkpoints and you have to swipe your ID card to go through those so that the authorities can know what trajectory you've followed. And all the while, remember, if you're outside, there are video surveillance cameras tracking you. We know that the authorities will track people if they turn their phones off. So going off the grid is problematic too.
Everyone is a suspect, everywhere, all the time. Pretexting the fight against terrorism, the party has criminalized all sorts of behavior. In Xinjiang, local leaders drew up a list of 75 signs of radicalization. Top of the list? Advocating the secession of Xinjiang and the creation of an Islamic state of East Turkestan. But other, much more mundane behaviors are seen as reprehensible. Suddenly stopping drinking or smoking, boycotting cultural or sporting events, or closing your restaurant during Ramadan. This list gives law enforcement a lot of room for interpretation.
And I think the party's and the government's goal is to make clear to all Uyghurs across Xinjiang that there are red lines, and the penalty for crossing that is to be detained for months at a time and now possibly prosecuted and given harsh sentences. It produces precisely one of the effects I think that the authorities are hoping to achieve, which is scaring people into near total submission.
Despite the arsenal of surveillance in Xinjiang, there remained a blind spot to which the Communist Party had no access: families' private lives. So the party had an idea. Because Han Chinese and Uyghurs don't necessarily get along, they would need to be forced to get to know each other. Chinese leaders organized ethnic unity weeks. Once a month, Uyghur families get a visit from a Han Chinese person who stays with them for a few days. In videos shared on social media, everyone looks very happy. In reality, these fake Chinese friends are there to judge the family members' loyalty to the party.
It was very clear that it also was for surveillance purposes, to see who was living at home, who wasn't there, how religious were they, did the children speak Chinese or Uyghur? All of this data gets recorded. I mean, can you imagine having officials from the ruling party in your country move into your house and sit at your dinner table and sleep in your bed with you uninvited? Particularly in a culture that is still reasonably conservative. So when the high-tech surveillance fails, don't worry, the party is there to make sure that they're keeping an eye on you, even in low-tech ways too.
Since 2016, the Communist Party has sent more than 1 million Han into Xinjiang homes with no remaining signs of Uyghur culture. This is the Communist Party's big project: erase the Uyghur identity to better replace it. Almost nothing remains of the old, majestic Silk Road city of Kashgar. In place of the ancient caravanserai, one finds motorways, buildings, and waste ground.
We estimate, and this is only an estimate, that around 1/3 of important Uyghur sacred sites, shrines, mosques, cemeteries had been destroyed in whole, and another 1/3 had been damaged in a significant way. It's an effort to re-engineer the Uyghur people, to transform them in the image of the Han majority.
Using satellite images, these Australian researchers also discovered that 100 cemeteries had been wiped off the map. The remains, taken from their traditional graves, now lie in anonymous brick tombs. The names of the deceased have been replaced by a number. there's nothing better to make a people amnesiac. In Aksu, the cemetery in which an illustrious Uighur poet was buried was removed to make way for the City of Joy, an ambitious urban project.
Usually it's explained as some kind of development, they need to build something there, but often these places are replaced with simply a parking lot. And it seems to speak to really a much more pointed and intentional attempt to undermine the history, to eliminate the basis of Uyghur culture. And it's clearly not about terrorism, it's clearly not about religious extremism. It's clearly much deeper and much more of a broad spectrum attack on Uyghurness or on non-Han culture generally.
These abuses against the Uyghur culture and population in Xinjiang are being characterized as cultural genocide by some researchers, a term with no legal basis, but which does make Chinese intentions crystal clear: to erase 11 million people, the equivalent of the population of Belgium or Cuba. Inside Xinjiang, no one is able to blow the whistle anymore. The Chinese authorities have made sure to silence everyone they see as their main enemies: intellectuals, university professors, poets and musicians.
Also die Umerziehung findet nicht nur in den Lagern statt, sie findet halt auch in Internaten, in Schulen, in Kindergärten, in Vorschulen statt. Vom kleinsten Alter an. Aufgrund von Dokumenten, die ich erlangen konnte, ist klar, dass also das Sprechen der uigurischen Sprache verboten ist, unter Strafauflagen. Und dass die Kinder also schon von früh an umerzogen werden, dass sie auch sogar ihre Eltern ausspionieren müssen. Und das ist also eine ganz dramatische Entwicklung, ganz, ganz dramatisch, weil hier ja langfristige Veränderungen geschaffen werden. Hier findet ein langfristiger Verlust von Kultur und Geistlichkeit statt, der mehr oder weniger unumkehrbar ist.
No Uyghur child can escape this, but the party isn't stopping there. Since 2018, children of prisoners are taken from their families and put in institutions where they're raised according to party doctrine. This video shows a young Uyghur proudly singing a patriotic Chinese song. This is Xi Jinping's dream. In 2021, the Chinese president gave his orders. We must plant in the heart of each child from the age of 6 love for the party, the country, and socialism. In Xinjiang, the new generation must consider itself, first and foremost, Chinese, and the sooner the better, because the leader doesn't want to waste any time. In the north of the region, Han have become the majority, and the capital, Urumqi, looks like any other Chinese city. But in the rural, traditional south, Uyghurs still make up more than 50% of the population. So in order to boost the number of Han Chinese, Chinese authorities must now meet specific demographic targets. In 5 years' time, the Uyghur population of the south must also become the minority. In order to achieve this, the party implements radical policies. Whilst working on birth rate statistics, German researcher Adrian Zenz uncovered documents clearly stating that births must be reduced and defining quotas of women to be sterilized.
Es ist ein Planungsdokument für 2020. Diese Dokumente sind zwei der schockierendsten Dokumente, die ich jemals in meinem Leben gesehen habe. Sterilisiert werden soll oder muss also als Mubiao, als Ziel für das Jahr 2019 14.872. Wenn man das mal gegenrechnet, das sind ungefähr 34% der gebärfähigen Frauen in der ländlichen Region dieses Regierungsbezirks. Das Ziel der Geburtenverhinderung hier ist, dass man das Bevölkerungswachstum, was ja recht hoch war, dramatisch zurückschraubt auf gegen Null oder in Teilen sogar unter Null, damit nicht, dass die Bevölkerung ausgelöscht werden soll, sondern dass sie leicht zurückgeht, dass sie nicht mehr wächst, sondern vielleicht leicht zurückgeht und dass sie über die Zeit leichter zu kontrollieren ist und leichter zu assimilieren.
And yet, the nation needs children. The Celestial Empire is aging, and the renewal of generations is uncertain. Today, the one-child policy has been abolished throughout China, except in Xinjiang, where having more than one child can get you sent to prison. Beijing is innovative in its policies designed to reduce the Uyghur population. The party even promotes its good ideas on television. This scene took place in a tiny village in southern Xinjiang. The loudspeakers summon the inhabitants to the courtyard of the People's Hall. A textile company from eastern China has made a very long trip to recruit 100 workers here. Those interested need only write their names in a register. 2 days go by. No volunteers come forward. The team from the factory, all Han Chinese, go looking for applicants at their homes. Their target? Young, childless women. Buzainap, 19, has no desire to go, and her parents are also against it. The village chiefs insist, to no avail. Buzainap refuses.
自主职业，政府引导，我们不能干涉他的选择权，但是我们能影响他的判断。咱们的全国同胞都要一起发展，不能咱们，对吧？别的民族兄弟大踏步往前走了，他们还在原地循环。
Yaxşı işleyenlerin hatanısını açık turuqluq. Özümüz tırışmasak, bundan netice herkes özlüküden kip kalmaydı. Capı tatmasa halavet yok.
After thinking it over for a few days, the young Uyghur woman agrees, and the factory leaves with its quota of workers. The report presents this outcome as a win for the party, in its bid to help minorities escape poverty and divert them from separatist thoughts. In fact, the main goal is to displace the population, particularly women, to provinces where they'll be more likely to start a family with a Han. This pernicious method will eventually reduce the Uyghur population in Xinjiang, as ordered by the government. What the report doesn't mention is that refusing a job is one of the 75 signs of radicalization. The truth is that Buzainap didn't really have a choice. This young woman is just one victim, along with tens of thousands of other Uyghurs, of a state-organized forced labor plan. The Uyghur diaspora have spread several videos on social media, showing groups of workers gathered outside the villages before being sent in convoys to factories all over China. In a report published in 2020, a group of Australian researchers estimated that at least 80,000 Uyghurs have thus been shipped out of Xinjiang.
In the Uyghurs for Sale report, we linked over 80 global multinational companies to supply chains that could contain Uyghur forced labor in them. Now, supply chains are very complicated. Some of these companies are like Nike, Apple, leading multinational companies that have very complicated supply chains. But if you trace them down the line, we found that some of their suppliers do participate in these labor transfer programs that include Uyghur workers.
In the camps, the prisoners are also made to work. They're used as labor in workshops built close to the detention centers.
Regierungsdokumente haben weiterhin gesagt und zugegeben, ganz offiziell, dass diese Form der Fabrikarbeit, die mit diesen Berufsbildungslagern zusammenhängt, dass dadurch eine Großzahl von Firmen aus Ostchina angezogen wurden und dass das mittlerweile wirtschaftlich für die ganze Wirtschaft in Xinjiang eine große Rolle spielt. Das heißt, wir haben hier ein System der Ausbeutung, wo man vielleicht sogar davon ausgehen kann, dass dieser teure Sicherheitsapparat durch die Zwangsarbeit mitfinanziert wird.
Forced labor, sterilization, arbitrary detention, destruction of heritage, Orwellian surveillance. As ordered by Xi Jinping, the party is using all the tools of dictatorship to mercilessly eliminate all those who resist it. The Chinese Communist Party's General Secretary thinks the region's inhabitants should have complied a long time ago, believing that Xinjiang has always been part of the national territory. But the facts are stubborn and contradict the Chinese president, who's rewriting history as he pleases. Centuries earlier, Uyghurs had settled in these arid reaches of Central Asia, around the oasis cities of the Silk Road. It was only in the mid-18th century, after fierce battles, that the Qing dynasty occupied this territory. The Chinese emperor named it Xinjiang, which means New Frontier in Mandarin. Xinjiang was a Chinese colony, but the name was rejected by the Uyghurs, who preferred the more political Eastern Turkestan.
You know, certainly I think one of the biggest issues with the Chinese state's governance of this region is that the Chinese government does not recognize the local inhabitants as the indigenous population of this region. The Qing Empire makes it a colony. It starts a civilizing mission. It tries to promote the Chinese language, Confucianism in the region. But in many ways, that whole effort was quite a failure. And so by the fall of the Qing Empire in 1911, the region had not really become Chinese.
Ever since, the Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities of Xinjiang have rejected assimilation and often rebelled. In the early 20th century, a Uyghur independence movement emerged, and in 1946, the Uyghur political leader, Ahmadjan Kazemi, became president of the Eastern Turkestan Republic. The government was under Soviet influence, but the Uyghurs were independent. They had a country and a flag. Three years later, when Mao created the People's Republic of China, the issue of Eastern Turkestan's independence arose again.
Stalin was very suspicious of Mao, but he recognized the victory of the Chinese Communist Party, and at this point they were all socialist brethren. And so there was very little that Ahmadjan Kazemi could do other than simply to acknowledge this victory himself. He renounced the Eastern Turkestan Republic and began negotiations and discussions with Chinese communist officials in Xinjiang. And there was to be a meeting known as the People's Consultative Conference, held in Beijing in August of 1949. And so the Eastern Turkestan Republic leaders were invited to go to Beijing for this conference and took a plane. Nothing more was heard of them for several months. And then in December, Chinese authorities announced that the plane had crashed in Siberia near Lake Baikal and all passengers had been killed.
The convenient death of Ahmadjan Kazemi brought an abrupt end to the young Eastern Turkestan Republic. The Uyghurs found themselves unwillingly in the Chinese fold, but Mao showed diplomacy. To counter a desire for independence in the region, he pledged the cultural identity of Uyghurs would be respected. In 1955, the great leader created the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region.
因为我们看到中国共产党当政以后，他直接模仿对象就是苏联。那么，所以中国呢，那个政府呢，那么也就根据斯大林的民族的定义，那么把中国分成了现在是叫56个民族。那么所谓的有语言呢，有居住的区域啦等等的。然后他在模仿了苏联的所谓的民族区域那个自治的那个这么一个体系。那么这就是中国今天的自治区制度。
Now, in Xinjiang, what that meant was that the Uyghurs had a special place. Uyghur language was legally allowed to be an official language. It was used in education through the school system, all the way from kindergarten through university. Newspapers were published in the language. There was an active publication industry in other materials in history and literature and so on.
Despite all this, integration into communist China wasn't straightforward, especially since, for months, Uyghur farmers saw thousands of Han Chinese from eastern China settling in the region. This first wave of immigrants joined the Bingtuan, a semi-military organization created by Mao to run this Chinese Far West. The Han settlers claimed the best land and built huge farms, schools, and dispensaries. Their mission was clear: to ensure economic growth, social stability, and ethnic harmony, and crush pro-independence activity. The Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region was autonomous in name only.
In 1955, the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region was proclaimed, nominally under the governance of a Uyghur official, who was the governor of the official. But as with this entire so-called autonomy scheme, real power continued to lie in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party. And in Xinjiang, always, the first party secretary, the man with real power, was always a Han Chinese.
Mao's first economic reforms were a fiasco, and in the late 50s, tens of millions of Chinese starved to death. By launching the Cultural Revolution in 1966, the communist leader hoped to cement his power. Repression was rampant throughout China. In Xinjiang, the Red Guards destroyed mosques and persecuted imams. Thousands of Uyghur families took refuge in neighboring socialist republics. However, China soon closed the borders and held would-be exiles prisoner. Everything changed when Mao died in 1976 and Deng Xiaoping came to power. The new Chinese strongman wanted to give ethnic minorities a real say in China's affairs. This fight against Han chauvinism was led by a survivor of the Cultural Revolution purges, Xi Zhongxun, Xi Jinping's father.
Xi Zhongxun, the father of current Chinese leader Xi Jinping, was one of the figures responsible for this reform of ethnic policy after the Cultural Revolution. And he was known for being someone very, very sympathetic towards non-Han peoples, and who advocated taking a soft touch to these ethnic issues in China, and in particular to working with local elites and to supporting their culture and trying to co-opt different cultures into the Chinese system rather than trying to convert them or repress them.
In the 1980s, Islam rose from its ashes in Xinjiang. Mosques were rebuilt, and traditional languages were given more prominence. You could even be a party member and a practicing Muslim. But this golden age couldn't hide another reality. There were more and more Han Chinese in the region, and they were claiming all the land's natural resources.
在80年代之后，特别是在90年代市场经济起来以后，新疆各个方面，经济、教育、公共服务都变得是 全中国可能是最落后的一个省份。同时呢，中国的国有企业在新疆的开发，比如说在新疆的石油的开发，并没有让当地人民享受到利益。
As inequalities deepened in Xinjiang, the Chinese Communist Party feared renewed tensions with the Uyghurs. At the end of 1991, a global event made Chinese leaders nervous. On December the 25th, the Soviet Big Brother's red flag flew for the last time at the Kremlin. Socialist republics gained independence. The USSR disappeared. China feared it would meet the same fate.
Many in China interpreted the breakup of the Soviet Union as a result of Soviet nationalities policies. In other words, that they had planted a time bomb administratively in their entire system by supporting those different nationalities, which then rose up to sort of break out and lead to the explosion of the Soviet Union.
There was basically a worry that the Uighur region, Tibet, maybe even Mongolia, that they could become separate states. And the Chinese Communist Party wanted to make sure that that was avoided at all costs. I remember being in the Uighur region maybe in 1994 and hearing from Uyghurs saying, there's now a Kazakhstan, there's a Kyrgyzstan, there's an Uzbekistan. Why is there no Uyghurstan?
Chinese authorities were terrified of a contagion of independence in Xinjiang. In the name of maintaining stability, repression descended once again. Islam, revitalized in the 1980s, was once again in Beijing's sights. Religious gatherings were banned. Quranic schools were closed. Several thousand Uyghurs were arrested. Some, deemed too radical, were tried in public and executed. In response, demonstrations broke out in Gulja, in the north of the region. Thousands of soldiers quashed the protest, firing live rounds. The clashes lasted for 2 days. Officially, 9 people died. Unofficially, it was more than 100. In the following days, bombs exploded in Urumqi and Beijing. In Xinjiang, Chinese authorities claimed to have found many arms caches and reported more than 200 attacks, blaming Uyghur terrorist groups. To Beijing, independence activists, religious leaders, and terrorists were one and the same enemy. The attacks on September the 11th, 2001 gave China an unhoped-for opportunity to justify its repression of Uyghurs. And so, the world learned the name of a terrorist group which China accused of carrying out operations on its soil, the Eastern Turkestan Islamic Movement. Beijing claimed this terrorist group, hostile to China, was trained, equipped, and financed by Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda.
As a scholar, I and my colleagues had never, ever heard of the Eastern Turkestan Islamic Movement. It was basically the vision of one man by the name of Hassan Massoum, and he was a very religious person, and I would say a religious nationalist. He believed that religion should be the vehicle that could bring independence to the Uyghur territory as a Uyghur nation state. However, it also never really became a coherent organization at all. and certainly didn't have the capacity to carry out any violent acts.
Beijing claimed the opposite when before UN representatives and brandished the spectre of an Islamist caliphate in Central Asia. The Chinese painted Xinjiang as the axis of evil. Chinese authorities obtained the approval of the international community to wage their own war on terror. In 2002, the Eastern Turkestan Islamic movement was added to the US and UN list of terrorist organizations. In exchange, China allegedly promised George Bush it would not oppose his plans.
There's no smoking gun to tell why the US recognized this Uighur organization as a terrorist group. But there was a lot of speculation at the time and after that it was about getting the People's Republic of China to acquiesce to the US invasion of Iraq, which would happen the following year.
History was repeating itself, and once again, Xinjiang was under strict surveillance, because at the dawn of the 21st century, China was preparing an event to cement its power. Nothing should stand in the way of the success of the first ever Chinese Olympics. Just a few weeks before the Games, another organization, the Turkestan Islamic Party, released a video warning that it intended to target Olympic sites. In response, China flexed its muscles. 100,000 police and soldiers were deployed in Beijing. The man in charge of supervising this global event was none other than Xi Jinping. No attacks, more than 1 billion viewers during the opening ceremony, a record medal tally for China. The Games were a huge success for China and a stepping stone for the future president.
中共的话呢，他在那个就是2008年呢，他成功的举办了奥运会。那么他觉得呢，他做的呢是非常的了不起，那么成为了就是崛起的大国。但是紧接着呢，你会发现呢，那么75事件爆发，那么75事件爆发呢，就使得2008年打造的这种所谓大国崛起了。那么一下呢，我觉得就是那个变成了一个就是尴尬。
On July the 5th, 2009, everything changed in Urumqi. Exactly a year after the Olympics, 1,000 to 3,000 protesters demanded justice after 2 Uighur workers were lynched by Han Chinese in southern China. At first, the police managed to disperse the crowd, but after a few hours, they lost control.
There are some reports that they actually shot at the demonstrators with live ammunition from the very beginning. So after the peaceful demonstration was repressed like this, then a riot did break out.
That evening, the situation turned into a bloodbath. Armed groups of Han Chinese and Uyghurs exchanged blows. The settling of scores lasted several days and left hundreds dead. There were thousands of injuries and arrests, and many disappearances.
Even though there was violence on both sides, Han and Uyghur, the Chinese government essentially blames Uyghurs. I think those riots were incredibly important because that created a real sense that the Uyghurs are a violent threat to society.
The central government accused foreign Uyghur independence groups of having planned and led these violent riots. According to Beijing, these separatists had declared a holy war against China.
By calling it a terrorist event and saying it was entirely a one-sided attack by Uyghurs on Han, the Chinese authorities have really missed the opportunity to try to get to the source of this interethnic tension, and they're simply trying to paper it over.
The Urumqi riots traumatized the entire Chinese nation and strengthened the hatred between Han and Uyghurs all over the country. As the police state was reinforced in Xinjiang, several tens of thousands of Uyghurs chose to flee. They took refuge in nearby countries, or in Europe and Turkey. A handful of them became radicalized and left to wage jihad, especially in Syria, giving Chinese leaders an opportunity to crack down even harder on the region's inhabitants. When elected Communist Party General Secretary on November 15, 2012, Xi Jinping made control of Xinjiang his priority.
The approach that his father took in the 1980s doesn't seem to have achieved this goal of stability, which is so important to the Chinese Communist Party. And so perhaps Xi Jinping, for that reason, thinking his father might have failed with that approach, has decided to take a completely different one.
Xi Jinping's method would be forced assimilation, the rapid transformation of Xinjiang's population into good Chinese. To achieve this, the president drew inspiration from a 2011 article published by two party ideologues. Hu Lianhe, who defended China's position at the UN in 2018, and Hu Angang, an economist who supports a China united around the ultra-majority Han ethnicity.
团结，只有民主团结，中国才能够成为世界真正的世界强国。这是我的结论。少数民族保留自己的文化，同时他作为中华人民共和国的公民，他也要学习我们所说的汉语，对吧？因为这是国家文字。你们应当老老实实的向中国虚心学习，来了解中国为什么会成功，这是根本点。
In their article, the two professors advocate the relentless dilution of minorities' ethnic consciousness, the promotion of inter-ethnic marriages, the generalization of Mandarin, and the adaptation of demographics to the situation. This article became the basis for a plan developed at the highest political level and methodically executed. To implement it, Xi Jinping appointed a strongman in Xinjiang, one who had already cracked down on Tibet. Chen Quanguo had political ambitions and wanted to please his boss. As soon as he became party secretary in Xinjiang in 2016, he acted with great eagerness. A few months in, he created 7,500 new police stations in Xinjiang. And in February 2017, he organized a large show of force by placing 10,000 armed men under the statue of Mao in Hotan, a city in the Xinjiang province. For Uyghurs, Chen Quanguo is the creator of evil, the embodiment of all their suffering. Many describe him as the devil himself.
那么，所以呢，你可以看到了陈全国他的那个心狠手辣，那么尤其对少数族裔了那个不惜下重手了，正好是那个体现出了就是习近平所期盼的，就是守土有责了，而守土了有方了。那么这种就是那个绝对忠诚，而且有绝对就是那个有那个强势了。那么那个用习近平和他的周边的人的话就说，有这个胆量敢白刀子进红刀子出，那个敢于见血的人。
Chen Quanguo's name appears several times in the internal party documents revealed by the New York Times. When he took office in 2016, Chen sped up the construction of what the party called professional training centers, wanting them to teach like schools, be run like an army, and to be defended like prisons. He told local authorities to round up everyone who should be rounded up.
Give me answer! Fascist China! Terrorist China! Give me answer! Fascist China! Come to here! Become a concentration camp! Like 90 of my family members! Give me answer! Where are they? Are they alive? Died of concentration camp! Give me answer! Fascist China! Terrorist China!
Once a week, Abdurrahim Gheni yells with rage beneath the windows of Chinese diplomats in The Hague.
Bu mening dadam, opam, cho'ng akam, ikkinchi akam, bu mening inem, bu mening oyog'imning akasi.
19 members of his family disappeared during Chen Chuangguo's roundups.
Izchil namoyish qilish orqali 19 oila a'zosining izlarini qilishdan birga millionlagan ovoz chiqmagan xalqimlarning ovoz dunyoga anglitish orqali millat oldidagi bir majburiyatini, mas'uliyatini ado qilib kelyapman.
For months, Gheni kept silent. He didn't dare protest for fear his family would face retaliation. Then one day, he realized that Beijing was relying on his silence and that of the Uighur diaspora.
Men 2017-yil 11-24 kuni chiqqandan keyin lagerdan ota-onamning yanida bir hafta davolandim. Ya'ni mening bunday quvvatim yo'q. Otam ashuna naqshlik istamaydigan haqimdan chiqib turgan odam. Ayni vaqtda buni deyishgan. Meshan Mirram beshini qo'yib turib xo'shashgan vaqtimizda biz Alloh bilan xo'shashib bo'lgan. Buni topshirib o'tgan. Biz hamon o'lib ketamiz bolam. Sen bu naqshni yetkazganda. Shuning men bu maydan qaytmaydiganligini biladi. Shuning bilan men bu Amerikaniki IPP'ning ziyoratini qabul qilgandan boshlab bir-birlab tutishga boshladi. Atam qo'lga olgan vaqtda 2018-yil 24-kuni sening balangni bu ishlarni to'slash uchun sen cho'qim bizga bir video ishlashi kerak. Shuni majburlangan qamgandan keyin o'ldirib tashlangan. Ana meniki atam 2018 9-ayning 18-i Pichan naylik tarbiyash markazida kamp lagerda o'ldirib tashlangan. Bu mening atam Bakir Ibrohim.
İnaqla o birden-bir qaraqaным mening u yerda yenimdeki aşınçılar derecede bo'lib ketgan qizlarning aş mening yenimda o'xshash, menga o'xshash ashundaq nobud bo'lgan, menga o'xshash ashada ash zulm uchragan, hatto kechalar ochiq ketgan nurg'un odamni ko'rdim men. Chunki hech nimga qaramay mayli, nim bo'lishidan qat'iy nazar. Faqat men hayot yurib bir kunimni vatandosh qarindoshlarimning ashaqdagi qolgan insonlarning qutulishiga atab qo'ydim. Boshqa butun ashadagi Uyg'urlarning bir erkin so'zlab, haqiqiy bir ahvolni chin yurikidan chiqarib so'zlab, menga o'xshash deydigan bir kunni ko'rgim keldi. Boshqa emas, erkin so'zlaydigan holat kelsa bo'ldi, mayli boshqa bo'lmasin, boshqa hech nimani talab qilmayman hozir.
Gheni, Omia, and Tursunay's voices are now being joined by dozens of camp survivors, men and women who are enabling the world to better understand the tragedy in Xinjiang that China can no longer hide. In 2020, several groups of exiled Uyghurs filed a complaint for crimes against humanity and genocide at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Xi Jinping could personally be indicted. To date, however, Beijing has not reacted. China doesn't recognize this independent court's authority and continues its unscrupulous, systematic persecution of the Uyghur population.
Ich selbst war der zum ersten Mal gesagt hat, dass die Situation in Xinjiang die größte Masseninternierung einer ethno-religiösen Minderheit seit dem Zweiten Weltkrieg, also seit dem Holocaust, darstellt. Gleichzeitig ist es aber auch ganz wichtig natürlich, dass man abgrenzt, dass man sagt, es sind keine Massenvernichtungslager, es sind keine Tötungslager im Sinne der Gaskammern, im Sinne von Auschwitz. Dennoch denke ich, dass dieser Vergleich angemessen ist in Bezug auf das Ausmaß und die ausgefeilte Methodik, mit der dieses Menschenrechtsverbrechen durchgeführt wird.
The power struggle between human rights defending countries and allies of Xi Jinping is escalating. In the autumn of 2020, 39 Western countries condemned the repression of Uyghurs in Xinjiang and demanded that China allow international observers to visit. In retaliation, 45 countries friendly to China got behind Beijing. Among them, many Muslim countries, historical partners with China, like Pakistan, where China is financing major infrastructure for the development of the Belt and Road Initiative. More recently, in the spring of 2021, the European Union, the United Kingdom, and Canada imposed sanctions on 4 high-ranking officials in Xinjiang, accused of grave offences against human rights, and a major China-EU investment agreement has been frozen.
中国政府的官员就是按照工作的职责要求做事情，是个职务行为。他们为此受到美国的所谓的制裁，这是他们的光荣。他们以此更多的证明了他们是国家的好公务员。这个意义不大，因为没有改变我们的领导的这个领导方式，使得中国的领导和百姓对美国有更多的怨气。
All over the world, Chinese diplomats are showing their claws due to these sanctions. Their spokesperson in Beijing was even more threatening.
外国列强架起几门大炮就能打开中国大门的时代已经一去不复返了。几个所谓的学者和媒体同官方勾结，就能肆无忌惮地抹黑攻击中国而不受任何惩罚的日子，奉劝他们不要低估中国人民捍卫国家利益与民族尊严的坚定意志。来而不往非礼也，他们终将为他们的愚蠢和傲慢付出代价。
La Chine a besoin de durcir le ton en permanence et d'adopter des comportements plus agressifs, dirait-on, plus offensifs, ce serait un terme plus correct, sur le plan international. Et c'est ce qui fait que vous avez une rupture assumée et promue par la Chine qui consiste à dire les droits humains, la démocratie et l'état de droit ne sont pas des concepts chinois, nous les récusons. Et donc cette agressivité contre les droits humains et contre les Nations Unies font de la Chine un partenaire aujourd'hui en rupture. Mais pour moi, les choses sont claires, c'est la Chine qui s'est mise en rupture.
如果呢，我们做的你们认为违反了我们加入的国际协议，那么请你们提出来好好说，态度能不能注意一点？中国人因为被你们骂得厉害，现在火气也很大，他一看你骂，我就不理你了。
Chinese leaders' disdain for the international community could claim other victims. Once the issue of the Uighur community is resolved, what will become of the Tibetans, Mongols, or Hong Kongers? What lies ahead for residents of Taiwan, which Xi Jinping has promised to bring into China's fold by 2049, by force if necessary?
我经常在问这个问题，就说我们是不是可以让北京呢，那么知道更多的那个智慧，有更多的那个善良，有更多的同情心，因此的话呢，他就不会那个实行种族灭绝的政策，那么他也不会那个破坏那个就是人们的基本的个人自由。但是我的一个基本的感觉是，总的来说这是缘木求鱼，与虎谋皮，因为他的骨子里边呢就没有说要让每一个个人那么幸福。
Today, China is the main trading partner of 130 countries, including 10 in the EU. Economically inescapable, China seems to enjoy a solid impunity. Despite the timid reactions of a few major democratic countries, the international community is maintaining a complicit silence. The persecutor of Uyghurs seems to have a bright future.